Welcome back to another episode of Swing State Radio, episode 6. I'm Kyle,
And I'm Brian.
and today we will be talking about climate change and our thoughts on it. I guess my thoughts first off the bat. I think there is climate change, but I don't think it's to the extent that the left claims, and I can prove it with facts that it's not to the extent that the left claims. And I think that it's just naturally occurring due to sunspots and the sun heating and the sun cooling.
I think that we as people who don't, just like some people don't understand, urban planning or something like that, a lot of people tend to just write science off as whatever, and I think that the scientific consensus is there that climate change is real and it's man-made. In my opinion, I don't think it's even should be a political argument. I am on the complete opposite side of you. I think overall this is one of the most pressing topics of our generation in the next 100 years, to see what we as humans can do to prevent it.
See, and I'll take that point, saying it's the most pressing topic, and with all the crazy predictions people make nowadays, I want to go back to predictions made around the first Earth Day back in 1970, which are pretty crazy, and I'm sure you and a lot of our listeners would like to hear. So one of them is the Harvard biologist George Wald estimated that civilization will end within 15 or 30 years unless immediate action is taken against problems facing mankind. So back in 1970, 15 to 30 years unless immediate action is taken. And immediate action hasn't been taken. China is producing more than ever. So why isn't civilization ended? The day after the first Earth Day, the New York Times editorial page warned, "Man must stop pollution and conserve his resources, not merely to enhance existence, but to save the race from intolerable deterioration and possible extinction," which hasn't happened. Population will inevitably and completely outstrip whatever small increases in food supplies we make. And that was in April 1970. Also in 1970, he said, the death rate will increase until at least 100 to 200 million people per year will be starving to death during the next 10 years. So by 1980, there would be 100 to 200 million people starving to death per year because of climate change, which hasn't happened. It is already too late to avoid mass starvation, declared Dennis Hayes, the chief organizer for Earth Day, in the spring 1970 issue of The Living Wilderness. So he already said it's too late to avoid mass starvation, and there's not mass starvation going on. In 1970, Life reported, scientists have solid experimental and theoretical evidence to support the following predictions. In a decade, urban dwellers will have to wear gas masks to survive air pollution. By 1985, air pollution will have reduced the amount of sunlight reaching Earth by 1/2, which obviously isn't true. Senator Gaylord Nelson wrote in Look that Dr. Dylan Ripley, Secretary of Smithsonian Institute, believes that in 25 years, from 1970, somewhere between 75 and 80% of all species of living animals will be extinct. So that's not true either. In 1975, Paul Ehrlich predicted that since more than 9/10 of original tropical rainforests will be removed in most areas within the next 30 years or so, it is expected that half of the organisms in these areas will vanish. And 30 years from 1975 would put us at 2005, and we still have all the rainforests and all the creatures living in it.
I think quoting people from 1975, and I'm sure those are easily obviously those statements are outlandish, but I think quoting people from 1975 and saying, look, these people were wrong, doesn't make it any less true that climate change is, or any less unreal that climate change is still an issue. I mean, here's like, and this isn't any crazy predictions like that, but 97% of scientists, and this is all from NASA and whatever, 97% of or more of actively publishing climate scientists agree that climate warming trends of the past century are extremely likely due to, in some parts, of human activities. In addition, most leading scientific organizations worldwide have issued public statements endorsing this position. You know, there's like all these, so American scientific societies that have endorsed this position are like the American Association for Advancement of Science, the American Chemical Society, American Geophysical Union, American Medical Association, American Meteorological Society, American Physical Society, the Geological Society of America. Other scientific academies that endorse this are the U.S. National Academy of Sciences, U.S. government agencies, U.S. Global Change Research Program, intergovernmental bodies, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and then there's a whole list of other resources that endorse the position that man-made climate change is real. Temperature of the Earth has gone up by like 1.7 degrees since 1880, but like that trend has like amplified largely in the last 30 or so years. Evidence, so the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere has increased exponentially almost. I mean, I don't know about exponentially, but it's a huge increase since just 1950 alone.
What has increased?
Carbon dioxide levels in parts per million.
Okay, so I will, real quick, I'll touch on your point of 97% of scientists agree, which is actually a falsehood. The 97% myth is something the left likes to use and claim that 97% of scientists support the concept of man-made climate change, but it's actually closer to about 43%, which is not consensus.
I mean, I'm looking at NASA and the global climate change.
And I'm going to go into it.
Going beyond that.
So let me go into it. It's one of the most common talking points, and is these two people, Joseph Bass and Dr. Spencer, explained in the Wall Street Journal. This number comes from 3 sources, and they're all riddled with errors. In 2009, University of Illinois student conducted a 2-question survey for her master's thesis that asked respondents if global temperatures have risen and that humans are a significant contributing factor. Skeptics and proponents typically answer yes to both questions, so surprisingly, 97% said yes. Additionally, only 79 scientists responded to the survey. So that's 79 respondents to this survey. Is not...
I mean... So,
and then also, well, let me continue.
Let's not get hung on 97%. I mean, I just read off a plethora of
and I can read off 30,000 scientists who
a plethora of organizations that have endorsed it. So, I mean, we're like the Wall Street Journal also isn't like a scientific journal. Like they're not to say that have 2 scientists come on there and say that these facts are not true because, I mean, let's not even get hung up on 97%. Let's go to the fact that 109 out of 197 countries that initially signed the climate change agreement in Paris have already put together climate change reduction, like things to help, their plans to help reduce climate change and meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. That's 197 countries. Let alone let's moving past scientists that think that there's obviously some sort of issue with climate change.
Because these people who are enacting these laws they're not scientists.
But these people are actually going off what the scientists have said.
Okay, so let me touch on the topic then of you saying that carbon dioxide is rising. That's what you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take it back to like 3rd grade science class. When humans breathe, they release what?
Carbon dioxide.
Okay, and where does the carbon dioxide go?
What?
where does the carbon dioxide go?
in the air, but
In the
like
air, and where
trees
does
breathe. I mean,
trees take in the carbon
these are
dioxide?
normal like processes. I mean, let's go look at.
So that's what I'm saying. The more carbon dioxide in the air, the more the trees take in, and the more oxygen they release. CO2 is a naturally occurring byproduct of photosynthesis, and has
But
never
it's
been a
also
pollutant.
a byproduct of
It's not even covered by the Clean Air
cars,
Act.
trucks, all these different things, and just beyond like. I think the issue of climate change goes just beyond.
Okay, so let me pull up
rising
this
sea
stat.
level.
Greenhouse gases make up
I mean,
no more.
I literally have NASA, all the scientific stuff pulled up on here. I literally have.
And
I mean, I could go
NASA
through and read all. the
NASA
evidence.
declared in 2014 to be the hottest year on record, despite the fact that they were only 38% sure about it.
Where are you finding this?
I have all these press releases and stuff from the Washington Post and left-leaning sites.
No, that says the Washington Post attempted to spin it in favor of NASA. Like, just because you have one article that says that all this stuff isn't true doesn't mean that like.
Okay,
climate change is not
so
real.
let me talk. Greenhouse gases make up no more than 2% of the atmosphere. Of that 2%, the planet-killing carbon dioxide comprises of only 3.62%, while water vapor encompasses 95%. And the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, humans cause only 3.4% of annual CO2 emissions.
I mean, like, I'm literally pulling up photographs. Obviously I can't show people listening to this show, like, the changes and the glaciers over the years.
Okay, so let me touch on that point
The
then.
storm, the amount of increase in extreme weather.
Okay, so let me touch on that point. Polar ice caps are melting, and that's causing sea levels to rise. Go home, fill up a glass with ice, full all the way to the top with ice, and then fill it with water to the top of the rim. Wait 3, 4, 5 hours, put it on a heater or something to let it melt faster. Of that water displaced, that's how much water you'll have being displaced by the ocean and the polar ice caps, which is none. It'll actually decrease the amount of water.
Since I keep having to jump around because I don't know where to keep going, but they reported that I think it's in the past 100 years, but mainly in the past 50 years, sea levels have already risen 6.7%. Most of this ice isn't sitting. I mean, it's partially on water, but it's also on land too. I just don't get why we have to. So even if you don't think that there's this insane climate change, what is wrong with some? Because it's also been proven that the same thing things that cause climate change to a certain extent also affect people's daily lives. I mean, just from personal observation, when I went to Denver and hiked up into the mountains, we looked out over the city and you could just see this covering of smog. It's that is not natural. There's no natural processes that create a dense smog over cities. There's all these different things you can go into, and it goes just on beyond global warming. It goes into people's personal health, all these issues that what we breathe in, I just don't get and it's not moving on beyond just okay, what is climate change, whether or not we believe into it. It's what actions do we take moving forward? And I mean, for the longest time, and I would agree with it up until recently, is that we don't have any true technology to replace the energy sector, to continue the amount of uses we have, but continue the amount of energy consumption we have, but replace it with something that's not carbon based. But the answer is we do have that technology now.
No, we don't.
Yeah, we do.
It's not.
I am literally at work. We have programs that subsidize
Subsidies.
Yeah, but that's the government helping, that's not taxing you, that's not anything, like,
I mean, it
I'm
takes
for a
from
carbon
taxes.
tax, I'm for a bunch of different things, but I
Carbon tax.
think,
Why a carbon tax?
but,
Why a carbon tax?
because that's would force people to move, like,
So now you want the government to force me to not drive my car.
no, I want the government to incentivize you to start looking at other ways, or looking at, for big companies to find other ways to maybe get you a electric car that's like a reasonable
See, but
electric car.
electric
Or-
cars aren't even that great because depending
I know
on where
they're
they're
not.
produced,
But the problem is when people are getting the shit taxed out of them, then maybe they'll realize that, this is a serious issue.
no, that's not.
But
That's
but-
Marxism.
but-
That's not.
But obviously, like in America, it wouldn't work that way. So what's another way to maybe get people to like look into these things? Just to incentivize them. I mean,
Tax me to
There-
death.
there's
isn't
a
an
solar ready
incentive.
program.
A carbon tax isn't an incentive whatsoever.
I know it's not. But I'm saying like people might realize that they should, be doing these things. We have
Okay, so let me
in
go.
place. We already have in place in the Cincinnati region, the area we live. We have in place a solar ready program that basically will help you replace, build a solar infrastructure within like on your building or on whatever.
So why would I put a solar structure on my roof when my roof is covered by trees?
Well, see,
Trees which
so-
are helping the environment. They're taking in the carbon dioxide that people are releasing.
Because
and
those
they're
people
producing
are out of
oxygen.
luck if they don't like. But this is like OKI and I can't talk today. Collaboration with other groups created this map, this interactive map online that will literally tell you your solar potential. And believe like it's more likely than not that you have like some sort of solar potential.
Yeah, anybody can have solar potential. I mean, there will be. But what
then-
is the
but-
point in Cincinnati when half of the
Because
year?
if you have solar potential, then you can, build these things. You can not only will you save on your electric bill because you're producing your own energy,
Not in the winter.
but then in some cases you're actually having to sell that energy off to energy companies because you produce too much. The next step is creating a battery of some sort that is able to store solar energy for when it's either cloudy or rainy or something like that. And we have companies like Tesla that are like on the verge of having that created. I mean, going back to the debate,
Teslas are actually worse for the environment than normal gasoline cars.
because they get their energy from carbon-based power right now.
So
But
where are they going to
when-
get it from then? To make energy, you have to have coal products. You have to. There's no efficient way to not spend money out the ass.
There's
And-
all sorts of renewable energy resources that are becoming more powerful. Like we're being able to retain more of that energy.
Do you want me to drive out to Missouri with a Tesla and then sit it next to a windmill and hook it up so I get energy from it?
No,
like
but I'm saying like as more and more of our energy is produced from renewable energy resources, like our power, then if you hook up your electric car to your household outlet, I don't know, then chances are that 25 to 35% of that's probably coming from renewable energy, not carbon-based.
But how? It's not. I'm not focusing on after the fact. It's during the process of making the car. What they use more,
what I'm saying
especially
is
in
like-
Ohio. Ohio is a coal-based state, and in Ohio, it's one of the biggest producers for Teslas. The lithium batteries, the lithium-ion batteries that are supposed to run the Teslas very long and with great power. The creation of these batteries uses more coal than a normal car does.
So, Tesla is currently building their first gigafactory, which it's funny because Donald Trump said that, America's not making any factories and stuff anymore. Tesla's Gigafactory is now
Because
the world's largest factory.
It's being
in the world.
made through government power. Government is helping fund a lot of that. And my main point is, if this is so great,
for significantly less cost, using economies of scale, innovative manufacturing, reduction of waste, and the simple optimization of locating most manufacturing process under one roof. They're producing these batteries that within the foreseeable, so like the next 10 years, I'd say, we'll be able to store this like renewable energy that we haven't been able to store before.
see, and my point is, you can't, if this renewable energy is so great, release it to the market, let people decide if they want to do it, if it works so well, and prove that it can work.
People don't know about it, and
Everybody
we are
knows about it. It's all over the news.
We are slowly doing. I mean, like, you can't just snap your fingers and there's all of a sudden a global renewable energy infrastructure. Like, we didn't. I mean, if you go back to when we first started industrializing as a nation, we didn't just build the railroads overnight. We didn't just build
Rome wasn't built in
the
3 days. I
highways
understand
overnight.
that.
We didn't just build a gas station on every corner in 2 years. Like, this is a process. But the problem is, we, through lobbying and other issues at the national level, we are trying to stymie, or not we, but there are certain groups that are trying to stymie the growth and innovation of renewable energy resources. And you want to talk about regulation and different things like that. It's funny because a lot of the people on the right are okay with stymieing innovation in renewable energy resources with regulation, but then they want to let the oil and gas industries do whatever they want.
I mean, it just isn't right now an efficient method.
If it was perfect right now, we'd be 100% renewable energy. So, yes, I agree with you that it's not perfect right now.
That's what I'm saying. So why try to force people, like you said, under a carbon tax and force them to pay money for driving a car that is way more efficient and produces better for them, produces more power,
in economics, it's you either offer people an incentive or you
or you let capitalism work its way out like it should. And so that's what I'm saying. Why don't you wait? Why don't people making electric and renewable energies, why don't they wait till they can actually make it efficient enough to stand market competition? It's just like the eco fuel.
But they're fighting. I mean, yeah, you can say that, but they're actively fighting the oil and gas industry, which has tried to stymie them every step of the way. I mean, yes, in a perfect capitalistic free market, we'd be able to say, oh, well, in 20 years, we'll all have renewable energy anyways because it'll work itself out. But that's not the case. We have different lobbying groups and different powerful people that are actively fighting innovation in renewable energy and technology.
It's just they're fighting it because
they are they get money through the oil and gas lobbyists.
But they get money through Tesla right now making electric cars because they make them out of coal and gas and everything else.
But the thing is, on one hand, you're saying, no, don't invest in creating energy through...
No, the government shouldn't invest in
renewable energies. But then on the other hand, you're saying, well, Teslas aren't reliable because we don't have the energy infrastructure in place for renewable energies. It's you gotta build both up at the same time.
And that's that's what I'm saying. Even if you go to flex fuel and using carbon-based products to make
countries
fuel.
that have done Denmark has already pledged to be 100% carbon-free, have a 100% carbon-free economy in the next I think they might have said by 2020. but I need to double check that. I mean, it's not impossible. It's just
Denmark is like not.
my question is why should we be retroactive about something instead of being proactive about something? There's obviously an issue. Like I said, I mean, you can deny it all you want, but the bottom line is that like
Okay, do you know?
almost there's scientific consensus.
It is not
climate
consensus.
change.
There were
Yes, there
30,000
is.
scientists.
Show me these 30,000 scientists.
I will pull it up and I will put it in the show notes. But have you ever heard of this hockey stick graph?
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously significant changes have happened, and in this graph it shows that it's been increasing dramatically. So over the past thousands of years, significant changes in climate have continually occurred through geologic time. For instance, the medieval time period, there was a warm period, which they called the medieval warm period, when the Vikings farmed on Greenland, which obviously when they're farming in Greenland, they don't, like the Vikings, they don't have carbon-based products. There was a warm period from around 1000 to 1200 AD, which was followed by a period known as the Little Ice Age. Since the end of the 17th century, the average global temperature has been rising at the low, steady rate, although from 1940 to 1970, temperatures dropped, which led to a global cooling scare. And remember back in like in the period from 1940 to 1970, if you go back and look at history, people were saying we're going to have another ice age. So what is it? We're going to have an ice age, and then 20 years later we're having global warming? Back in 1970 when they had the first Earth Day, and then now it's climate change? Why are you changing from ice age, global warming, climate change? Now we can't make up our minds. What is it? There's no there. You say there's a scientific consensus, and there isn't one.
Yes, there. I mean, I don't even know if it's worth arguing anymore, because on one hand, I don't know. I can't argue or even begin to debate something that you won't even give me the time of day to just be like, look, here's an overwhelming amount of data that says that it's warming. And I'm not just talking about global warming. You keep going back to global warming, but the problem is we live in a society where our cities are dirty and polluted, and we're breathing in air that is killing us. And to say that, there's no, talk to Bangladesh. I just did a whole 2 papers on the effects of climate change in Dhaka, Bangladesh.
It is not climate change. So even on Forbes, the scientific global warming consensus, not. There are plenty of sites out there that have released.
But you keep citing the Wall Street Journal and Forbes, which are both.
They're not right leaning. Don't say that.
They're not both right. They're not right leaning, but they're economic magazines. They're not based. They don't do as much research. They're not the scientists. Again, I can go back and read off the groups that have endorsed the fact that climate change is real.
No, it's not. It's maybe it's real, but it's not forced on by humans. It is a naturally occurring process that we've seen since the Vikings, like I mentioned earlier, since 1200 AD. It's because of the sun. Humans don't have that big of an impact to affect the way the sun shines on the earth.
I don't think it's worth continuing to sit there and deny something when we can proactively be solving things. And it doesn't just have to come from government regulation.
So since 1998, more than 31,000 American scientists from diverse climate-related disciplines, including more than 9,000 with PhDs, have signed a public petition announcing their belief that there is no convincing scientific evidence that human release of carbon dioxide, methane, or other greenhouse gases is causing or will, and for the foreseeable future, cause catastrophic heating of the Earth's atmosphere and disrupt the Earth's climate.
And where did they get that number from?
The 31,000?
Yeah.
It's on a petition.
Can you find that petition?
Yeah. It's just not there. People act like there's a consensus, and there's not a consensus whatsoever. Like I said earlier, it's about 43%.
I just, like, literally, I mean, you can say what you want, but in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, the next generation, like, the whole thing is progress versus sitting back and doing the same old, same old. I mean, again, I'm not just talking about climate change and global warming. I'm talking about people's lives and their quality of life, which is going down because we continue to pollute the atmosphere with these chemicals that are not healthy.
Okay, I have the petition right here. 31,487 Americans, scientists, to this day have signed the petition, including 9,029 with PhDs. And it says, we urge the U.S. government to reject the global warming agreement that is written in Kyoto, Japan, back in 1997, and any other similar proposals. So now that Paris Agreement would be included in that, the proposed limit on greenhouse gases would harm the environment, hinder the advance of science and technology, and damage the health and welfare of mankind. There is no convincing scientific evidence that human release of carbon dioxide, methane, or other greenhouse gases is causing or will, in the foreseeable future, cause catastrophic heating of the Earth's atmosphere and disruption of the Earth's climate. Moreover, there is substantial evidence that increases in atmospheric carbon dioxide produce many beneficial effects upon natural plant and animal environments of the Earth. So they're saying here, and it goes back to my first point, third grade science, the more carbon dioxide that is produced, the more the trees take in, and the healthier the trees are. And it's not just trees, it's plants, it's agriculture. It's part of photosynthesis. They take in the carbon dioxide and they release it as oxygen.
Okay, so
carbon dioxide creates food.
So Snopes.com, which is like a
Far left.
no, they
Yes.
like undercover. Okay, so even like I'm not saying it's far left, but let's just assume. Here's a counterpoint to what you were saying. So the claim is that 30,000 scientists have signed a petition. We already talked about that. What's true? A petition has been in circulation since 1998. It claims to bear the name of more than 30,000 signatures for scientists who reject the concept of anthropogenic global warming. What's false? A petition was created by individuals and groups with political motivation was distributed using misleading tactics and is presented with almost no accountability regarding the authenticity of signatures, and it asks only that you have received an undergraduate degree in any science to sign.
There's over 9,000 with PhDs.
It is therefore misleading for the signatories to be considered climate scientists or even top researchers in the field, as some suggest. In fact, based on the group's own numbers, only 12% of the signers have degrees of any kind in earth, environmental, or atmospheric science.
Okay.
Further, the petition and its creators are not neutral parties. The major entities supporting it can easily be described as politically motivated. The petition was organized by Arthur B. Robinson, a conservative politician who founded the aforementioned Oregon Institute of Science and Medicine and holds a PhD in biochemistry. Along with the petition itself, the document was sent out with a cover letter written by Frederick Seitz, a National Medal of Science medal winner and a former president of the National Academy of Science, who later went on to be an influential yet controversial tobacco lobbyist and who founded the George C. Marshall Institute, a conservative think tank that has been morphed into one more focused on climate with a long history of promoting environmental skepticism.
Real quick, back to the part of Frederick Seitz. Politics aside, okay, I don't know personally, I've never heard of him. They said he's known to be a conservative activist. Okay, but he has a PhD in biochemistry. That's biology. That's environmental issues. That's what I'm saying. I'll look up one of these random people with a PhD
Seitz's
on here and see what they do.
participation in the circulation of this petition raises another line of issues for the petition. That its original iteration intentionally misled its signers into thinking it was a document officially supported by the National Academy of Science. cites a former president of the Academy used its official letterhead to draft a letter of support and manufactured a non-peer-reviewed study formatted to look as if it were published in the Academy Journal as a report reported by the Washington Post in 2006. In addition to political motivations behind the Oregon petition and the deceptive ways in which those motivations were masked, there is also the problem of accountability regarding the validity of the names that appear on the list. In 2001, the Scientific American attempted to verify a random sample of 30 names on the list who claimed to have a PhD in climate science. Of the 26, we were able, and this is the Scientific American, of the 26 we were able to identify in various databases, 11 said they still agreed with the petition. One was an active climate researcher, 2 others had relevant expertise, and 8 signed based on the informal evaluation. 6 said they would not sign the petition today, 3 did not remember any such petition, 1 had died, and 5 did not answer the repeated messages.
Well, what if they contacted the
Critics
wrong
of
person?
lax accountability about this whole alleges of those who allegedly signed the document were even able at one point to add a variety of humorously fictional and otherwise absurd names. As the University of Chicago researcher Mariana Lawson pointed out or discussed in the 2005 paper published by Science, Technology, and Human Values, the careful study of the list revealed names of fictional characters such as the Star Wars movies, as well as a name of a pop singer, Jerry Halliwell, from the Spice Girls band. Critics for the petition had added bogus names to illustrate the lack of accountability the petition involves, including the difficulty, the practical impossibility of verifying even the actual existence of each of the signatories, not to mention their expertise. To make the latter point, someone had added the title of doctor to Halliwell's name. Aside from the potential political motivations behind the petition, the misleading tactics employed to gather the signatures, and the lack of verification regarding those signatures, the fact remains that a petition is open to anyone with an undergraduate background in science to sign, and the vast majority of signatures are not climate scientists.
It's just not. I don't believe Snopes whatsoever. I mean, I get it; they're a quote unquote fact checking site, but they're not.
Okay, but there's I'm just offering a counterpoint, and you can say what you want, but like.
And I just looked up
Snopes
3
does
scientists,
research.
and I'll put the whole scientist list. I just looked up 3 scientists with the letters PhD behind their name, and it showed up with they were involved in biology.
But what
or
they're
something.
saying is that even like other scientific journals did a sample calling of these scientists, and they said most of these scientists were either misled or don't even support that position anymore. I mean, you got to also think that it's been circulating since 1998. I mean, in 1998, I was 5. I'm 23 now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's a long, long time to have the same petition circulating.
It's just. I just don't believe the 97% theory.
But, I mean, to hinge the idea that global climate change is not real because of this one petition, I don't know. But we have to wrap up because we're already late for our next class. So,
On that
great
note,
talk.
good discussion.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get, when you have to do this. We're both really busy and kind of had to fit this one in on a whim, so.
Yeah, so.
I guess that's what happens when you try and do it before class and things get heated.
Oh well, I guess we will see you guys back here
We're gonna have
tomorrow.
a jam-packed week because
Yeah.
we need to fit a few of these in.
We're going to be throwing a lot in here in the coming weeks, so we'll
Yeah.
see you guys back here tomorrow.